We talked a lot about.
All right, coach. Couple practices in so far, and one thing that I personally have been noticing is that your talk and your speech on success. That's one thing you really try to instill within not only this team, but the team in the past as well. So, give us your definition of what success looks like, what success feels like, and how that also helps teams in the past as well.
Well, I think that there's not a. We touched on this a little bit last time that we talked. There is a blueprint for success. It's not something that necessarily happens by chance. I mean, occasionally it does, but that's considered luck. It's not considered doing it on purpose. And I think that it's important to get young people to understand that they can control. They can't control what happens to them, whether it be on the court or in the classroom or in life or in relationships or whatever. They can't always necessarily control that. However, they can control their response to that, or they can control the odds being in their favor that they're going to be successful. And that comes with a lot of times taking care of the most basic things at a really high level, and paying attention to detail. I said last week that complacency breeds mistakes, and that's with anything. You've got to continue to be focused and moving forward in whatever it is you're doing and being intentional about that. And I think that comes with, for me, I think that comes with approaching everything with the same level of effort. How you do anything is how you do everything. And we say that a lot. I'm going to say that a lot. And I think that's a big part of it. Now, what does success look like? Well, it's different for every person. It's different for every team. It's different in every situation. Personally, from a team standpoint, did we maximize what that team was capable of? I think that's the big judge there. However, me personally as a coach, in my situation, judging success is more about the success of our players once they leave here and what they're able to do in their lives, their careers, their relationships. That's the big telltale sign of whether or not we were successful with them. And what I mean by that is, did they maximize what they're capable of? Do they have a happy life? Are they living the way that they imagined themselves to? Not really struggling to get by. They're thriving in their jobs. They're thriving in their relationships with their families and those types of things. And that's what, to me, success looks like as a coach, and what we should be focused on, rather than just the wins and losses.
All right. Now, you talked about getting the most out of a team. What team do you feel like, because you've been here for a while now, the accomplishments all over the office? I know in my mind, I think I know the answer to this question, but what team do you think you've gotten the most out of, success-wise?
I think the most out of success-wise, it would be a couple of groups of classes, probably. It's hard to top that 2014 through 2020 group of players that we had. Obviously, they had the success on the court. I mean, they were number one in the country. They went to Final Fours. They went to Elite Eights. They, just nonstop with that stuff. But what that group has gone on to do with their lives outside of basketball since leaving there, I think is been telling. That there's a blueprint. They focused on the right things as players. as students, and now it's carried over into what they do professionally. And I think that's a big, that's a big source of pride for me personally, that they've gone on to do that. Now, the ones that didn't, it's also a disappointment, because regardless of who they are or how many we have, we want them all to achieve it, and so that's kind of disappointing. Now, we've had teams. I feel like maybe my best coaching job were teams that were some of our worst teams here, but they were challenged from the beginning, and we had to do the best we could with what we had for whatever reason that year, and they fought and battled and maybe didn't win, but were close in games they shouldn't have been. That can be success too. So I think looking at those years from the late teens into 20 were probably our most successful years, not because of just what they did on the court, but what they did after it. I would say closely followed by some of the early groups that we had that came here for no scholarship money. We played at the high school. We practiced at the high school. They went through a lot of adversity as students, but because of that, they learned from it. We all went through it together in growing the department and growing the program. And so they were a part of something, and they've also gone on to, the majority of those guys have gone on to really successful professional careers and whatever they do, and have families now and still come back, and that's really awesome. So I think it's kind of a toss up between those, and it's still just kind of the jury's out on some of the more recent teams, just because they haven't had the time to, outside of school or away from the program, to grow. But we'll see. High hopes for them. And again, if they learned one thing from us that's helped them achieve some level of success in their life, then hey, we succeeded. And that's a big thing, because we try to touch everybody, but you can't, unfortunately, and that's the frustrating part. And my coaching friends that we talk all the time, it's one of the things we talk about, is how frustrating that is, that we can't reach them all, because those are the ones that we don't reach, are the ones we lose sleep over, and they don't understand that. They think, oh, coach, we don't like you, or they didn't like, coach didn't like me, or we didn't do this, we didn't do that. No, it's the exact opposite. We're really making an effort, and it makes us we agonize over the ones we don't reach.
How important is it for you to see that success for your players off the court? You see what Charles has done, what Bishop has done. Now you're starting to see what Colt Myers doing, Kobe Ward, those type of guys that just left. You're starting to see what they can do success-wise off the court. So how is it important for you to see that aspect of them after they leave, or even while they're here?
Well, that's the whole, kind of the whole premise I was talking about. It's that's where you drive as a coach. You get the most pleasure out of seeing what they go on to do with their lives afterward, and you see signs. Like, there's a lot of guys that we've coached that hey, they're going to be successful when they leave here, because that they're going to put the work in. They're going to pay attention to details. They're gonna work, just work relentlessly on getting things a certain way that it takes to guarantee the probability of being successful. And so, I think that's the biggest thing we could ask for as coaches, is that they go on and do great things.
All right, and then last question. Couple more weeks away, days shipping by. First game's around the corner. RSC starting to pick up the basketball pace. How are you feeling going into our first game?
Ready to get it going. Just because this is the first year in a long time we haven't had some preseason scrimmages to look at where we are versus somebody else. And so it's really hard playing against yourself every day to be able to translate that now to playing against somebody else. So, I just want to get it going so that we can, get back in the film room and think about what it is we need to improve on, that we can't maybe necessarily expose against ourselves, or something that we're doing well that we keep harping on, maybe that doesn't, we can move on to the next thing because we are doing it right. Those are things that are really hard to tell, against yourselves in practice. We've got the alumni this weekend. Hopefully that's going to be a great look for us to be able to, and we purposely asked some guys to play that can give us some problems in certain areas, because we know that we're concerned about it just against ourselves. We want to see that against somebody else. So hopefully it'll be a great weekend and teach us a lot, so that we can go into that first game a lot more confident with how we're going to perform against other people.
All right.
Way to keep it simple. Way to keep it simple, Sean.